Welcome once again to Planet Normal, the Telegraph podcast with Allison Pearson.
Hello.
And me, Liam Halligan. It's great to be here in London's Docklands with all of you today. Congratulations to all the organisers of this CPAC here in London. We're both columnists on the Telegraph. I think between us we've done several decades of Telegraph columning. We started as children, and every Thursday morning we release Planet Normal on the Telegraph's platform. We've been going since early 2020. I think words to describe our Planet Normal podcast: irreverent, ballsy, sane. There you go. There you go.
Sane is a very restricted commodity, you may have noticed. So
Indeed. And every week we usually do an hour. We're just going to do a truncated version for you here today. Thank you so much to Liz and her team for inviting us to do this. We're very, very pleased to be here. Every week we have a guest as well. Our latest edition of Planet Normal, which you can listen to on Spotify and all the usual places, is a really interesting chap called Henry Patton, who's a reigning Wimbledon champion. He just won the men's doubles for the second time at Wimbledon in 3 years. The doubles people don't get nearly enough exposure in our view, and that's why we like to back underdogs on Planet Normal. We like to give people platforms who we believe deserve a platform. Sometimes it's leading politicians. Sometimes, ladies and gentlemen, it's actually our listeners who just write into us and we put them on a national platform if we think they deserve it. Talking about national platforms, Alison, incredibly, Andy from Makerfield's going to become Prime Minister on Monday. No election of sorts, no new manifesto, lots of changes, and massive journalistic scrutiny by Gary Lineker and that legend of journalism. I think we're going to have a period of stability. Andy Marr. Before we come on to that, I know you've got strong feelings about that subject. Let's talk a little bit about, briefly, our friend Anne Widdecombe. I think a lot of people in this room will know Anne Widdecombe or will know of Anne Widdecombe. I can hardly believe I'm now saying the late Anne Widdecombe. You wrote a brilliant tribute to her in the Telegraph, the lead piece in the paper on that, because you knew her well.
yeah, well, I know Liz paid a lovely tribute to Anne yesterday, and I've never known anyone I liked who's been murdered. Most of us don't know. Obviously, it's still all veiled in mystery, but the police have corrected their version, saying that it was not politically motivated, to say they now brought in a terrorism-related inquiry and possibly looking into far-left extremism. And I do think, Liam, that Anne's death, God rest her soul, will now be casting a light on the absolutely appalling hatred and vitriol that has been whipped up against Nigel Farage and the Reform UK party. And let's remind ourselves that Ed Davey, that great big chump who's always jumping in and out of bull ponds, isn't he? He, at the Liberal Democrat Party conference, actually said, who is the most dangerous to the UK? Not Tehran, not Moscow, but Reform UK. I thought that was incitement to hatred.
I thought that was mad. I thought that was the sort of basket of deplorables moment there by the political genius that is Ed Davey. We're not used to political violence in the UK, and yet in recent years we've seen the death. It is a cross-party thing, unfortunately, though I agree with your comments, in particular with Anne and the relation to Nigel. We saw the death of Joe Cox, who was a very popular Labour MP, who I think we both admired very much. David Amess, a good friend of mine, who was famously the MP for the city of Southend. He made sure it was a city. Another very popular figure on the right of the Conservative Party, but again, huge cross-party love for him. Stephen Timms, a current Labour welfare minister, was attacked with a samurai sword and almost died. This is nuts. We have a golden thread in this country. We have a constituency link. Our MPs are elected in their constituencies. Any member of the public with an email can see their MP every other Friday night in the constituency. That is the tradition.
But you leave,
do you think now that we're going to lose that? Do you think we're going to have to encase our MPs in a ring of steel?
Well, I think that people are calling for more security. One thing I would say was that, again, we're seeing two-tier justice, two-tier standard towards assassinations, right? Because around Joe Cox, rightly, there was tremendous respect and deep distress, and everybody honoured what had happened to that MP. Very different reaction to the horrible murder of Anne Widdecombe, a marvellous, robust champion of family values and all the things that we care about. And some of the stuff that's been said about Anne, and yesterday we had someone who works for the Aberdeen University, so-called Heather Herbert, a man, you'll be amazed to learn, who's been arrested, who had posted tweets saying he hoped that Anne died a long, painful death, chained to a bed, crying. I mean, the kind of hatred, Liam, from the left to the right, I think, is of a different order from the right to the left. We may, I cordially loathe Ed Miliband, for example, but I don't wish him. Can't imagine a world in which you would lack so much humanity to wish any fellow human being a painful death, never mind a 78-year-old living in her retirement bungalow on Dartmoor. It's been pretty horrible, hasn't it?
I do think it's a truism that people on the left believe they have a monopoly on virtue. And if people don't agree with them, it's because they're evil rather than they just got a different opinion. And I think that is when democracy falls to pieces. And I do think it's generally in that direction. I agree with you. Let's talk about our great leader-to-be.
Can we just say quickly before we move on, Anne Widdecombe was, among other things, an amazing champion of free speech.
That's
so
true.
this hideous Heather bloke who's been arrested, Anne would not want that freakish person to be arrested, right? Because you should all look up, actually, a great speech Anne gave at the Oxford Union, where she basically said, you can't go through life not being insulted or offended. It's part of living in society. And she said, if you don't want to be offended, go and live as a hermit. So I think Anne Widdecombe, yeah.
I think she'd have just said in response to those comments, appalling, and moved on. And this is, just fine. Before we move on, think about Anne Widdecombe, right? She was never in the cabinet. The Conservative Party never put her in the Lords.
No.
She became a national treasure, not because everybody agreed with her, but because the punters out there beyond Westminster like somebody with an opinion you can hang your hat on. An opinion that they believe in. Even if they disagree with it, they want to hear it. And we see this in our lives, living in the real world, on Planet Normal here in the UK, outside of the Westminster bubble. I think it's outrageous that she wasn't properly ennobled. And it was great that the Brexit Party brought her in to give her a whole second wave in her political career. And if and when there had been a reform government, I do believe Anne Widdecombe would have been put in the cabinet. And I think even a lot of her political opponents would have said, well, fair play to you, Anne. The Conservative Party made you wait 15 years before you got a seat that you could actually win. They made it very, very difficult. Cameron never put you in the cabinet, and there you are at the top of politics. Anne
would have been, I think, 82 or 83, would have been a bloody amazing immigration minister. Here's a question for you, Liam. Who said about Theresa May, an unelected prime minister throwing money at selection in schools with no mandate for it, and we wonder why people are fed up with Westminster? Who said that?
I think that would have been our Andy.
Our Andy. He's changed his tune, hasn't he?
He has. It's New Order now. Underneath all his interviews, he plays a bit of New Order. But what do you think of this? The world is. We've had half a dozen prime ministers in not too many more years than that. We're taking on Italian-style politics, even though I'd quite like Italian-style fiscal policy at the moment. They're actually fiscally consolidating under Maloney. Their bond yields have actually gone down over the last year and a half, which hasn't happened here.
Liam is my economics expert, although I'm rapidly coming up on the outside. So let's just talk very briefly, because of the great lady who's started CPAC. How are the bond yields looking compared to when Liz Truss was forced out for the terrible bond yield?
Well, this is absolutely true. For the last 18 months, the 10-year and the 30-year gilt yield have both been well above where they were at the very one-day peak of the so-called mini-budget crisis.
And no one has said Starmer's got to go because the finances are so terrible.
And this is a little bit technical. I know you can guide us through it, Alison, if we're not sure-footed. But in the run-up, absolutely astonishingly, in the run-up to that mini-budget, the Bank of England decided, oh, now we're going to start selling lots of bonds into the market. We don't have to. Nobody's telling us. We're going to throw tens of billions of pounds worth of IOUs at the market, just as Liz Truss and Kwasi Kwarteng are going to have to announce lots of energy subsidies. Is it any wonder the markets went haywire? I mean, I think future historians are going to have a field day with that particular episode in monetary history.
We have to make
the
sure...
deep state, the blob, trying to gainsay what democratically elected people are trying to do.
Well, as we said at the top, Andy has been avoiding scrutiny big time. No challenging interviews with Andrew Neil for our Andy. And he's just basically going to be the Britpop Prime Minister, isn't he? A bit of channeling a bit of Liam Gallagher. He actually did a video interview yesterday, which he posted. I don't know if you saw it. Absolutely unbelievable. Which was, I like to put the tea bag in milk to soften it up for my tea. Yes, I've worn socks with sandals. I mean, Liam, these are the kind of softball interviews you have when you've tackled some of the big stuff.
This is a pre-Christmas interview when you're growing at 3.5% a year and you've got a budget surplus.
Yeah.
Not when the financial markets of the world are thinking, how mad are the Brits? And if Ed Miliband becomes Chancellor, we're already paying 125 billion quid a year on debt interest. 80% of that money that we borrow is going on debt interest. And if Ed Miliband becomes Chancellor, it's going to cost us at least another 30 billion quid a year on debt interest.
Andy becomes Prime Minister on Monday, and they've got 2 months off. 2 months when the leader of our country doesn't have to answer any questions at all.
And the Tories, to their credit, tried to extend Parliament for another few days, so at least it'd have one Prime Minister's questions, and they stopped it.
No.
Alison, we haven't got long left, so why don't we bring on our fantastic Planet Normal guest?
Yes, you've just seen her. She's one of my favourite politicians. Laila Cunningham is Reform UK's formidable candidate for the London mayoral election in 2028. Born in London to Egyptian parents who emigrated here in the 1960s. Laila was a lawyer for the Crown Prosecution Service and then became a councillor and defected to Reform. You'll have seen her on television taking a blowtorch to all those useless left-wing people. Well, ladies and gentlemen, big round of applause for Laila Cunningham.
Hello again. I was just on here.
I know. We thought we can't get enough of you. Get you back.
So hello.
What was your thoughts, Laila, without wishing to be maudlin, when you heard that Anne Widdecombe had, as far as we know, been murdered? She was obviously a close colleague, somebody who had renewed her political journey in your party.
Crushed. I was devastated, also just on a fundamentally human level, and was a lovely lady. Lovely lady. And
tough, though.
Yeah, but I think anyone who doesn't chase popularity but chases their beliefs is tough. She was a woman of conviction, and I think anyone who stands by their beliefs and is unwavering in what they believe in, I think, is tough. And I think perhaps that's what we need. We need someone who chases what's right as opposed to what's popular, or what's popular amongst certain elite classes.
Yeah. Well, I think you got all the hallmark of being a worthy successor to her, because
that's an honour.
Because you go out and Anne would be so pleased that, and I really feel everyone here and on the platform, we have to be more Anne, right? We have to just absolutely stick up for what we believe in, because all the people who stir up the hatred against views, which are held by millions of people, right?
Is this Allison Pearson's bid to go on Strictly?
I think you'd be great, Alison. But I think also it's not always what we believe in, and I think perhaps that's what politicians feel. They feel that they want to pursue what they believe in. You are elected to represent the people, and it's what the people believe in, and it's the belief of people and what people need that's been ignored.
Yeah. What do you think that we've seen in the last couple of years since Starmer came to office? What I've thought of is, look, there's a lot of cut and thrust in politics. Everyone accepts that. But I thought the drumbeat of hatred and depicting reform as uniquely dangerous, right? Oh, we can't possibly let them form a government, even though at least a third of adults seem to be showing signs of wanting to vote for them. Do you feel that that sort of public hatred and contempt for your party has presented a background to what happened to Anne?
I don't want to justify anything. I don't want to justify any murder. But on another level, you know, when you have Labour's whole conference, basically, in last autumn was based on the fact that we are fascist, we're racist, we're an existential threat to the country. I think David Lammy even alluded to some Nazi affiliation.
Yeah, he did.
Remarkably. And I don't want to repeat it because it's so untrue. Of course, I mean, I couldn't believe what they were saying, you know, and of course it does. It puts a target on your back because someone who's not quite stable, if they think that you are an existential threat to the country, they will do everything they can to stop it, you know, and it's a complete disdain for what people want again, and it's trying to maintain power without engaging in the argument, just by trying to shut it down, because when you're called racist or fascist, you know, that's it, that's the end of the argument, really.
Laila, I have to ask you, what's a nice girl like you doing in a place like this? What do I mean by that? What do I mean by that? You're a very successful lawyer, you're extremely intelligent.
Am I?
You're a mother many times over. Given the context of this conversation, the opprobrium that's thrown at you and your party, the massive gap between how you and colleagues are sometimes portrayed and the reality of who you actually are. I know you're a person of conviction, and I think everyone in this room and many people across the country admire that. But do you ever wonder in your most private moments, and you are among friends, that maybe this is a bit too much? Politics is just too much, even for very, very smart people like you. How do we keep really good people coming into politics?
I never think that, actually, because for me, my country is too important, and fighting, as I said in my speech, that if my parents didn't come here, my life would be completely different. And
I feel the same way, by the way.
Yeah, and where did your parents come from?
From County Mayo.
Yeah, I mean,
in the west of Ireland.
Yeah, I wouldn't compare that to Egypt right now, but...
Sure. I'd say with huge respect, when did my parents arrived in the 50s.
60s.
It was not a friendly place if you were Gaelic speaking from County Mayo.
Was it not?
But
Liam's dad, who died very sadly earlier
the last thing he said to me was how grateful he was to the UK.
And he arrived...
Just passed away recently.
In November.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Yeah. He'd grown up barefoot,
Right.
hadn't worn shoes, and came to London and couldn't speak English. So there are other,
of course,
many.
But I have, like you, if I may, the gratitude of the immigrant, right?
Yeah.
I know what an amazing place the UK is.
And you never take it for granted.
You never take it for granted, right?
Yeah, and
also,
my parents
people
never
like
take it for
you,
granted.
your parents, Liam's parents, who set up a little business around the kitchen table. Our country has never been against immigrants who wanted to work and fit in, has it?
No. And I think the problem is that we have immigrants that come here now who want to see themselves as a victim of the country. And you will never be successful if you always see yourself as a victim. My parents came here, and I remember my mum, they lived in a one-bedroom flat in Earl's Court with 4 little kids. My mum worked 6 jobs, and all she wanted to do was be the manager. She worked in Peter Jones and a supermarket. And she said it was the happiest time of her life, because she said to me, even though we were struggling, and my dad actually used to go gamble, and he'd come back at night and said, I've lost it all. And but she said it was an exciting time because she was working, she was earning, and she knew that the more she worked, the more she could achieve. You know, and it was that concept of being able to reap what you sow that was not available in communist Egypt.
But we've
just
seen this in the last few days. People may have seen it. This another human rights tribunal case where people from Gaza who have been allowed to bring their vast 18 members of their extended family, none of them English speakers, to come and live in our country because the judge said, yeah, that might be quite bad for the country, but the mental health damage of the women living here already was more important than all of the people in here having to pick up the bill for the 18 non-speaking Gazan immigrants. It's absolute madness, Laila, isn't it?
Well, it's absolute madness because, as I said, we have a government that has stopped serving those that elected it. You know, it no longer works in the interest of the British people. And I was with someone the other day who said, you know, you really should, as Reform, you know, you should really highlight what immigrants have brought to this country. And I said, you know, perhaps, but I think what British people want is for the government to talk about what British people bring to the country. And yes, you know, I cannot, you know, immigration in small numbers, of course it's a wonderful thing. I can't say otherwise. My parents are immigrants, but I think there has to be a refocus. And that's why I joined Reform, because there has to be a refocus on what Britain represents and what British people have brought to the country.
Tell us about that moment when you said to the people you love, you said to your kids, I'm going to go into politics. What was the straw that broke the camel's back?
So my kids, when I dropped them off at school, we never listened to music. We always listened to like LBC or in fact, they know the song by heart. In the time when LBC was a bit, you know, a bit right wing or a bit balanced. Now it's gone off the rails. You know, Liam, that when your parents are immigrants, they are highly political.
Oh, yeah.
You know, my mum was so political.
Especially when one's Protestant, one's Catholic.
Yeah, well, there you go.
All the bases covered.
I grew up watching, you know, the News at 10,
yeah.
Spitting Image, you know, Arthur Scargill, Kinnock. These were all like household names
so
for us.
You must have been an infant.
Well, yeah, you know, before my time. But no, I mean, that's what it was always nothing else was discussed at home but politics. Yeah. So it was almost a natural progression, and it was this politics is this omnipotent thing that controls everything we do.
You left the Conservative Party, didn't you, and joined Reform? What precipitated that change?
Oh, it's a long list, but it was fundamentally, you know what, I could go on about mass immigration, lack of crime, high taxes, high regulation, low growth. But fundamentally, it came down to me that I felt that we had leaders that sacrificed our sovereignty, sought global partnerships while sacrificing our sovereignty. And
well put.
And I really believe in the sovereignty of this country. You know, I voted for Brexit despite, well, my kids are half French. I say despite, but probably because I was married to a Frenchman. Anyone who's married to a Frenchman would understand what I mean. But I voted for a sovereign Britain, a free Britain. You know, and that sovereignty for me is so fundamental. And I didn't feel that we had leaders that respected it and wanted to protect it. And I felt that Nigel has always been very clear-minded about it. And when you speak to Nigel, actually, it's very interesting. I had the opportunity to have a long conversation with him. He's obsessed with the history of this country. He's obsessed with the sacrifice that the soldiers made to protect our country.
Huge collection of military medals.
He almost tears up at what people have sacrificed.
I've seen that.
Right?
I've seen that.
Yeah, and I remember speaking to him, I said, actually, you know, Nigel, people portray your pursuit of Brexit as a hatred of Europe. It's actually a love story. You know, it's a love story for his country.
A love story for the sanctity of the nation state.
And everyone who sacrificed their lives and everything they love to protect it. And that is something that I haven't seen from other leaders.
No.
You know, and that's I think people are noticing that, and they want more of their leaders to.
But it's not all bad news, because Laila's best mate, Sadiq Khan, has just been sent to the House of Lords by Keir Starmer.
Exactly that.
And how many Reform Lords do we have?
0.
0.
And I'll ask this. So he did say a few years ago that the House of Lords should be abolished. And obviously being the Mayor of London is not a great title enough for him. But Alison, do you not think it's a conflict of interest? I mean, as in the House of Lords, you're meant to legislate for the country. As Mayor of London, you're meant to prioritise London. How does that work?
I don't know. I did read that Keir Starmer, that well-known socialist firebrand, has put more Labour people into the House of Lords.
17%, apparently.
123 new Labour peers rammed into an institution that they want to abolish. Go figure, right?
There you go.
Yeah.
Laila, we just got a few seconds left. We promised we'd get off stage on time. Again, it's great to have you with us.
Thank you.
You've been on regular Planet Normal, I think, a couple of times. People can hear more from Laila on Planet Normal in our archives. Just in the last few moments, tell us about reforms plans going forward. You've got a lot of good policy people that you've been talking to recently, that you've hired. You've got Danny Kruger doing a lot of good work. What are your thoughts going forward about how reform's going to tackle the next general election whenever it comes?
So I'll just say this, and one of the reasons why I left the Conservative Party is that I recognise that the Conservative Party was legislating and writing policy to help preserve the party. You saw it in the policies they made. It was not in the best interest of the country. And everyone who's joined Reform, none of us joined Reform because it's some prestigious 100-year-old party. We all joined the Reform. And listen, when I defected as the first councillor in London, I was called racist. Your life's over. Your political career's over. We joined because we no longer want to do politics to serve a party. We want to serve a country. And everything that we do will be in the best interest of the country, not in the best interest of anything else. And for me, that's how politics should be.
Fantastic.
Well, Laila, I think that message will get a lot of resonance in this hall and across the country. However people are going to vote, I think people are sick and tired of party-focused politics. It's great to have you here with us on stage. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Should I leave now?
No.
Thank you again to the organisers of CPAC. Allison writes in the Telegraph brilliantly every Wednesday and lots of other days too.
All the time.
Any
old rubbish.
I'm in the Telegraph every Sunday. Planet Normal comes out every Thursday morning. Please do follow us and subscribe.
And one final message from Planet Normal. Be more Anne. Okay, please.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.